يا راغبا في كل علم نافع.
ينمو العلم ويتقدم بتقنياته ومجالاته، ومعه نطور أدواتنا في تقديم العلم الشرعي. أكاديمية
زاد أكاديمية ينبوعها صاف ليروي غلة الظمآن. وتعلم الفقه الميسر عاملا بالشرع دون تعصب لفلان. بشرى لنا زاد أكاديمية للعلم كالأزهار في البستان.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وآله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهداه. أما بعد, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to the beginning of this fourth semester, your final semester, inshaAllah Azza wa Jal, related to the topic of fiqh, jurisprudence. As we've concluded in the previous three semesters, things related to what we as Muslims should know as default, as the basics, related to ibadat, forms of worship. Scholars tended after that to discuss in the books of fiqh things related to transactions, because the most important thing in life is to worship Allah Azza wa Jal. And to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to fulfill the 5 pillars of Islam, starting with tahara, with salat, with prayers, with the whole 9 yards of fasting, zakat, and the likes. After that is established, people have to live. People have to eat and drink and live in houses, which means that they have to buy, they have to lease. And this is where this chapter and whatever comes afterwards comes in handy. This chapter deals with selling and buying. And in Arabic it's called Kitabul Buyur, the chapter that deals with transactions, selling and buying. People cannot live without selling and buying. And because we are humans and each one of us would like to grab a piece of things to his benefit, there might and most likely there will be included a lot of transgressions, wrong things, wrong practices, because my eye is not on what is right or wrong. Rather, my eye is in what's going to benefit me. How can I acquire this and get it in my possession? By halal means or haram means. This is why shaitan tries to mess up with our heads and beautify things that are wrong and convince us that it is right. And this is where the Sharia comes in and governs these rulings. The companions, may Allah be pleased with them, and on top of them all, the khulafa, the 4 caliphs, specifically Umar, may Allah be pleased with them all, used to go to the market with his stick. And whenever he sees someone who doesn't have knowledge in how to sell and buy, who's oblivious, who's ignorant, he would kick them out of the market. And he would say, don't spoil our market with your ignorance, because then you would fall into haram. And the main criteria or the theme that governs how Islam protects buying and selling, as the scholars say, revolves around 3 topics. Al-Dhulm, transgression, ambiguity, al-gharar and riba, usury or anything that relates to interest. These are the three main themes that prohibit a great number of transactions. If you know how to avoid them, everything else becomes halal with the grace of Allah Azza wa Jal. So, to begin with, what is the definition of al-bay'? Al-bay' linguistically is stemmed, or it comes from the root word al-ba'. And al-ba' is the arm or the hand. And it is used linguistically because when I buy and sell, I extend my hand with the price or with the item. So it's give and take usually. However, according to the technical word or the Islamic terminology, al-bay' refers to exchanging of wealth. Because I'm going to give you something, which is an item that I'm selling, in return for a price, which I'm collecting. So it's an exchange of wealth, where I give and I take. And what do we mean by wealth? Well, actually, wealth is everything that you can possess. So, al-mal is anything that you possess, whether it is money, gold, silver, or property, a vehicle, an animal, a plant, anything that comes under this category of things to be possessed is considered to be wealth. Also, underneath this category could be benefits. So maybe I'm not going to give it to you to own forever, but I'm going to allow you to use it when this is done in renting or leasing. So this is also comes under the category of selling and buying, because I'm giving you the benefit to use for a particular period of time, whether it's a car or an animal to ride or a property to live in or to farm, or that it is a service that I'm providing you. If I'm a handyman, if I'm a carpenter or an electrician, and that you may utilize my services in such a fashion. And hence, this is what buying and selling is. It's an exchange. And whatever is not considered to be wealth, what is not labeled as mal, cannot be sold and bought. So it has to be something that is tangible, that can be possessed, that is considered to be a wealth. And when, in terms of selling and buying, it has to be forever. But in renting, it is timed by a time period. Now, there are pillars to be acknowledged or essential part of the transactions. And these pillars must be present so that the transaction of selling and buying could be valid. And these pillars are, number one, the format. So each contract has a format, even marriage contracts. They call it ijab and qubul. In marriage, which we will come to hopefully discuss later on, the guardian says, I give you my daughter X for marriage. The groom-to-be says, I accept her marriage. There is a format. Proposal and acceptance. This is pillar number one. Pillar number two, that there is a person who is conducting the selling and a person who is buying. So there has to be two parties, a seller and a buyer. And number three, what is to be sold and bought So there has to be the subject of such a transaction, which is the item and the price. So the format can be either a verbal thing that is done, and it can be by action. So it can take one of these two ways. Either it is something that we say, or it can be through actions without saying. And as I said, it's a proposal you make. I sell you my pen for 10 euros. This is a proposal. And the acceptance would be, I accept. And that is done with. And this usually is done with things that has value, things that have value, such as cars, real estate, expensive clothing, etc. There is a form of bargaining, because this is what selling and buying is all about, bargaining. I might say, I sell you this for 1,000 euros. No, this is expensive. How about making it 800? You say, oh no, that's too cheap. What about 900? We bargain, and then he says, what about 900? He says, I accept. The deal is done. There is another way of doing it is through actions. And this happens in petty things, in small things. Like you go to a grocery shop and you find an item with the price. You just pick it up, go to the cashier without even greeting them. See, it's 2 euros, you give 2 euros, he cashes it in and gives you the item, and you go. So this is something that people know without even speaking about it. Give and take. The second pillar is to have the two involved in the transaction. The one who's buying and selling, the one who's buying, and the one who's selling. So we have to have two individuals or two entities who are conducting this transaction. And the third pillar is the subject. If I have the money, then I have the price. What am I buying? I don't know. There's no selling and buying. Why? I've got the money. Yeah, but what are you buying? There has to be something to be sold. So there has to be these two things to be exchanged. And this is why there is a difference between the subject of the transaction or the subject of what's going to be sold and bought and the place. Because the place will be important later on, inshallah, when we speak about the option of choice. And we have khiyarul majlis, the option of the place. And that is something to come and to be discussed later on. هذا والله أعلم ونسبة العلم إليه أسلم وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا محمد.
يا راغبا في كل علم نافع.
ينمو العلم ويتقدم بتقنياته ومجالاته، ومعه نطور أدواتنا في تقديم العلم الشرعي. أكاديمية زاد
أكاديمية ينبوعها صاف ليروي غلة الظمآن، وتعلم الفقه الميسر عاملا بالشرع دون تعصب لفلان. بشرى لنا زاد أكاديمية للعلم كالأزهار في البستان.